Welcome to Career Channels, the official podcast of CareerSource North Florida. And now, on to the episode.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about veterans and how important they are to our economy in North Florida. And we chose this topic to be our kickoff episode, or our second episode, because we provide priority of service to our veterans. And everyone here at CareerSource North Florida sees veterans as our priority. When we talk about veterans, we're referring to individuals who have served in our active military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Service, who had a discharge other than dishonorable. And so we welcome everybody into our centers, but especially those who are veterans. When you walk into our center, we say, have you or your spouse served in the U.S. military? Everybody gets that question. And because even in some cases, it's spouses who are eligible for priority of service, not just the veterans themselves. And then we also have very specific services for our veterans who have an SBE, which in our world, that is a significant barrier to employment. And that list of qualifiers is very long. And maybe Charlie and Debbie can talk about that. I want to introduce our Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialist, or our DVOP, Charlie Fulmer is joining us, and also our Deputy Director at CareerSource North Florida, Deborah Cohen, and both are veterans. So I will let them introduce to you themselves and what their service, what their military service was, and just so you can get to know them a little bit. So Debbie, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Diane, for allowing me to be on today's episode. My name is Debbie Cohen. I served in the United States Navy for 20 years. I served a variety of positions, from electrician to master arms, which is law enforcement and civilian works. I worked as a command crew counselor, which is human resources in our civilian sector. I went everywhere across the world. When I say across the world, Mediterranean, did some Europe trips, did a lot of time in Virginia, some time in Gulfport, Mississippi, working with our CVs. And I had a great time. The experience was awesome, gave me a lot of soft skills that I can bring forward and use for transferable to work what I do now. Yeah, I think that's it for me on that part. Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, Diane, thanks for having me on. And like I said, Debbie was in the Navy, and I'm with the Department of the Navy, which is the U.S. Marine Corps. I was a correctional specialist. I did cross-country chasing. I did a little bit of work with CID, not as a CID agent, but nonetheless, and I got to do a little bit of traveling. I was in 4 years, really enjoyed it, working with veterans, with my service members and my fellow brothers and sisters in different armed forces. Like I said, it was an experience, and I am just excited about this program.
Well, thank you both very much for your service to our country. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's get into a conversation about how CareerSource North Florida serves our veterans. Again, we talk about priority of service a lot in our world. And so, Charlie, maybe you could take us through exactly what that means, what priority of service is, and what a veteran can expect when they come to our career centers.
Great, I'm glad you asked that question. So when you visit a CareerSource center, the first thing we want to do is reach out to you and let you know that you are a priority of service to our establishment. So if you have ever served in the military or your spouse, you're going to be asked to fill out a questionnaire. And some people wonder, what does priority service mean? Well, this means that you have access to certain things for your service to the country. That's why we put you first. And during that review of the different questions that you'll answer, once you get to that, that helps us define what services that you need, and then we can take it from there.
So Debbie, when we talk about services to our veterans, which is vitally important, but the flip side to that coin is our services for employers who employ veterans. So, and those are our two customer groups here at North Florida, CareerSource North Florida. And so maybe you could talk us through what resources we offer employers, how we educate them and work with them when they reach out to hire veterans.
That's a great question, Diane. Thank you for asking. For employers, what resources we provide, we do have a team of business development managers that talk about veterans when we have a veteran in the hopper ready to go to find employment. So we match up the talent. Charlie works through them, works with the veteran to get them processed through when they're ready for job seeking. He and our business development managers get together, they look at the resume, they have a mini interview. And then from there, that business development manager takes that resume to the employer and says, here's a veteran, here's why I think you should hire them. Veterans have a ton of soft skills that are transferable. What I mean by soft skills, show up to work on time, are adaptable. So if you have to shift, something shifts in the workday, they're able to move a little bit quicker without asking. They may ask why, but they will still continue to move forward and make that happen. Or if a process shifts, they just move with it. You know, my favorite word is pivot, but that's what a lot of veterans do. They pivot from one thing to the other because soft skills are done that way. When Marines and sailors and soldiers are taught, you're taught to move this way. Okay, you're going to do this task, and now you got to switch up because this task is now a priority. So those soft skills allow them to do that. Teaching hard skills is something that they can learn on the job, but really the soft skills, I think, is foundational for an employer when they're hiring a veteran.
My favorite aspect of veterans and veterans that we hire at CareerSource North Florida and those who come in seeking our services are that our veterans are trained to be trained, right? Mm-hmm. Just like what you said, you can, in most cases, that veteran's going to come in with the foundational skills that an employer needs. You're not going to have to worry about if he's going to be on time or if she's going to offer excellent customer service. Those things are just built in to who they are. So again, my favorite aspect is that they're trained to be trained. And so definitely a value for our employers. So back to you, Charlie. Talk to me about what specific services you as the DVOP are able to provide to a job seeker. Maybe take us through a scenario. You've only been with us a short time, but maybe you can talk us through, without breaking any privacy laws, talk us through how you've helped some of the veterans who have accessed your services.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question. When a veteran gets to me, they'll be referred from our frontline staff, and they will have been identified with what we call significant barriers to employment. And some people will be like, hold on, I don't have any barriers, I can do this. Well, there are so many things that are classified as significant barriers to employment. It doesn't have to be physical, or it can be that your resume needs help. It can be, you've been unemployed for a while. Because of that, you have a low income, and that's what brought you to the CareerSource. So the DVOP will bring the veteran back, and we'll do a one-on-one, and we'll go through some things together as a team. I tell all of my vets that when we come back, this is a team effort. We're going to work together just as hard as you want to work. That's how hard I can work. If you have questions, you have my number, you have my email. I am your direct line. What my job is to do is to work with you and build those skills up. If you need testing, to see where you're at in your skills and where your job places. There may be things that you never even thought that you would be interested in doing. And by taking these skills tests, it'll help identify those areas of interest that you could exceed in. Work with your resume, getting that straightened out to target the employers that you want to go after. Once that's all done, then we talk to the leaver, or we talk to employment services, and they go out there and they look for those veteran-friendly employers that are just waiting for veterans to get to that stage so they can employ them. Because they know, like Debbie said earlier, and you said also, Diane, is that they're on time, they're squared away, and they pivot. Whatever needs to be done, adapt, overcome, and improvise.
Okay, so as we're winding down our conversation, Debbie, can you give me where someone wanting to learn more about our services for veterans can go on the internet to learn more?
I sure can. Thank you for asking. So one, they can go to our CareerSource North Florida website. You can just Google that, CareerSource North Florida, and our website is right there. Or they can go to Employ Florida, which there's a website called veteran.employflorida.com. And that is a veteran-specific Employ Florida website
Portal.
for strictly just for veterans to sign in and do all those things that they need to do. It'll measure up their MOS, their coding, their occupational coding. I can't remember what MOS stands for.
Military Occupational Service.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie. So they can go up there and transfer that over to see what jobs line up with that MOS so they can try and get their resume in order. And that's a great location for them to start looking for jobs.
And just as a reminder to our audience, you can reach out to us at any time via email, contact@CareerSourceNorthFlorida.com. And all of that is spelled out. There's no hidden agenda in that email address at all. Contact@CareerSourceNorthFlorida.com. And just again, as we wrap up, I want to thank Charlie and Debbie for participating in this most important podcast with me and talking about our services and how we prioritize veterans at CareerSource North Florida. Just some things for the future. I was at a conference this week, so I gained all kinds of wonderful information, but there's some new programs coming out from DOL vets at the federal level. And we've talked briefly in-house, just briefly, about some of these programs that we look forward to seeing the results of the pilot and how we can be a part of implementation in the future. So that includes employment navigators who help guide those veterans who are transitioning. And then there's also a new initiative of off-base transition training, which is being piloted at a number of bases around the country. And I believe also some of the foreign bases as well. There are also other veteran initiatives that individuals can look at or can find out more online about. There's some really cutting edge programs using artificial intelligence. If you listen to the National Association of Workforce Boards podcast or NOBS podcast, you can learn more about the AI integrating into getting veterans transitioned and into employment. There's also two more or less employer-based initiatives out there. There's the Hire Vets Medallion Program, which we hope to have a couple of employers in the very near future be a part of, and also Skill Bridge. Would Debbie or Charlie, either one of you, like to talk about Skill Bridge really quickly?
So Diane, thank you for asking me about Skill Bridge. Skill Bridge is where folks that are on active duty who are in their last year to 6 months to a year to transition to come job shadow with an organization or a company to learn a trade or learn a skill or learn a little bit of apprenticeshiping in a way. They're still collecting their they're still working on active duty, still collecting their active duty stuff. And their captain has released them, their commanding officer has released them to allow them to come and participate in getting back into the civilian sector. This appears from the minimal interaction I've had with some of our folks that are doing Skill Bridge, that seems to be helping them transition a little bit easier and a little bit quicker into finding that forever job instead of finding the job that gets me by until I find the next one. It seems to be lining them up and reducing that attrition rate for veterans, because that's usually the other thing employers might have a hard time with, is that veterans don't stay long. It's because they haven't had an opportunity to plan. So this helps our veterans or active duty members plan before they become a veteran to find that forever home, so to speak, so they can continue on and be transition into the civilian sector.
Right. So it's like what we call on the civilian end, it's a little bit like an OJT, and we'll talk about OJTs in a later podcast, but it's very similar to that idea where they can hone their skill and while they transition into civilian life. And I really do hope that we're able to, at some point, be a part of that program. So any of you transitioning folks, give us a call and we'll be glad to reach out on your behalf to possibly institute a skill bridge opportunity for you. Okay, so veterans, I really hadn't projected what to say on this part either. So thank you, Debbie and Charlie, for participating in this podcast with me. And I've learned a lot, and I look forward to our audience hearing more. So again, you can visit our website, CareerSourceNorthFlorida.com, reach out to us at contact@CareerSourceNorthFlorida.com, or visit the Veterans portal at veteran.employeeflorida.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to Career Channels, the official podcast of CareerSource North Florida. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about CareerSource North Florida and the services they provide, visit CareerSourceNorthFlorida.com. That's CareerSourceNorthFlorida.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.